Well, hello friend. Today we're going to be doing one of our strategies that we learned. This is going to be our favorite strategy that we're going to be using whenever we do answering a question with a paragraph form or just creating any paragraph in any essay that we might have in the future. But just to practice, we are going to be reading a short reading passage. It is decodable, so it's easy for us to read, and we're able to do this independently. So I'm going to model kind of the way that I want you guys to do this assignment. So I'm going to start with reading my passage. Ted fell on the bed. He fell on his leg. His leg is red. Ned came to help. I fell, Ted said. I will tell Ben. I bet he can help, said Ned. All right, so now I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread, even though this is not part of our strategy, but it is always good to go back and read, and it'll also help us when we are using our phonetic skills, another strategy that we need help on, and then going back and rereading is a very good strategy to help us with that skill. Ted fell. Ted fell on the bed. He fell on his legs. His leg is red. Ned came to help. I fell, Ted said. I will tell Ben. I bet he can help, said Ned. All right, so now our question is we're answering in a paragraph form. When Ted fell, how do you think he felt? All right, so our strategy that we're going to be using is the hamburger paragraph writing. It is the model visually separates the topic sentence, body, and closing sentence. So this is our visual aid. We see here that the top bun is meaning for our introduction, our topic sentence. It is 1 to 2 sentences that tell us our main idea. Then we have the filling of the burger, which is our lettuce for supporting details, and then our tomato for supporting details. And then this is our, we would include the meat or anything like that, but this would be our supporting detail, our filling. Right here is important to use transitions, text evidence, or examples to support the main idea. That's just going to tie us back into our top bun, which is explaining our main idea. And then finally, our conclusion. This is our bottom bun for conclusion or closing sentence, basically summing up the main idea. So this will conclude and sum up all that we talked about, our main idea. All right, so I'm going to start this by doing my first sentence. My first sentence, I'm going to look back at my question. So we're answering in paragraph form. Okay, so we know that. When Ted fell, how do you think he felt? Okay, so obviously from the reading, we know that Ted fell, and it's also in the title of our passage. So for this one, I'm going to restate our question. Okay, so my main idea, when Ted fell, he was hurt. Okay, and I know this because this is how he is feeling. He is feeling hurt. So I know that because he fell on his leg, and I'm going to use a green highlighter to go back into and look for my supporting detail. So he fell on his leg. That is one of my supporting details, and I can put a number 1 on here. I don't have to, just using the highlighter is good visual enough. I also know this because it said his leg is red. I know that when I fall on my leg, it's gonna hurt. And I know that this is supported because it said his leg was red. So he definitely feels hurt. And I'm gonna put this as number 2. Ned came to help. I fell. So I know that this, I can use either green or red, but I'm gonna use green again. I fell. And he used an exclamation mark, meaning he is yelling or excited. But in this case, he would be yelling or screaming because he is hurt. All right, so I have 3 different text evidence or examples that support my main sentence. When Ted fell, he felt hurt. Okay, the way that I'm going to incorporate my supporting evidence into the paragraph is by using some transition words. When Ted fell, he was hurt. I know this because he landed on his leg. Okay, and then we're going to go back into our text. And what else did we notice? His leg is red. When Ted fell, he was hurt. I know this because he landed on his leg. Okay, so I'm going back and I'm rereading just to make sure that it's making sense, that I'm using the correct transition words, because that's something that we also need to work on. And it's always a good skill to go back, reread what we're writing to make sure that it makes sense and correct as we go along. So I'm going to do that one more time. When Ted fell, he was hurt. I know this because he landed on his leg. Okay, so I wrote, when he landed on his leg, it turned red. I got this from my text. Okay, his leg is red. Now I added an example or some background knowledge that I had. When something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. So I'm going to reread everything I have. When Ted fell, he was hurt. I know this because he landed on his leg. When he landed on his leg, it turned red. When something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. Right, so I'm going back and I'm rereading, make sure that I'm speaking it out loud so that I know that it makes sense. It's something that I would say fluently. It's going to help me with my fluency and make sure that I'm using transition words or good starting sentence starters. So in this case, I'm using when, I, when, because I'm providing an example. I could use, for example, when something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. But in this case, I just opted in for when. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread our question. Answer in paragraph form. When Ted fell, how do you think he felt? When Ted fell, I'm restating, he was hurt. I know this because he landed on his leg. When he landed on his leg, it turned red. When something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. Ted felt hurt when he fell. We can add that as our concluding sentence. Okay, so I'm going to read our conclusion first, and then I'm going to reread the whole paragraph. Ted felt hurt when he fell. When Ted fell, he was hurt. I know this because he landed on his leg. When he landed on his leg, it turned red. When something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. Ted felt hurt when he fell. And I'll put felt because I forgot to say that. Ted felt hurt when he fell. All right, so I've included, and I'm going to use my brown highlighter to highlight my introduction, topic, sentence, as well as, well, this is the first part, so I'm not going to jump ahead. When Ted fell, he was hurt. That is my topic sentence. I'm going to go back and I'm going to look for my supporting detail, my first one, and then my second with examples. So my first one is going to be I know this because he landed on his leg. That is my first supporting detail. My second was when, I'm going to make sure I'm using the right one, red. When he landed on his leg, it turned red. Okay, and I'm going to underline this because this was like an example. When something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. This is my example or background knowledge that I have. All right, and then my conclusion, Ted felt hurt when he fell. And I know that my conclusion, if I look back at my graphic organizer, is going to be brown as well. And it's going to sum up the main idea. All right, so I have introduction. When Ted fell, he was hurt. And in my supporting details, I'm going to talk about why he was hurt when he fell. I know this because he landed on his leg. When he landed on his leg, it turned red. When something on your body turns red, it can mean it is broken or fractured. And then I'm going to conclude my sentence, going back and tying it to the main idea. Ted felt hurt when he fell. All right, so this is how you would do a paragraph using our hamburger paragraph writing strategy. It's always a good thing to go back and to look at our hamburger, kind of see where each part is, so we're able to kind of focus on one thing at a time. And it's always good to use this when doing our paragraphs, and then when we do our essays and bigger writings, we can use this to help us do the small chunks of paragraphs first before we create our entire essay with multiple paragraphs, all following the same structure. And I've used this graphic organizer to answer a question that we had from our rating that we did. I also use different strategies like going back, highlighting the different key details that I wanted to use for my question. I also numbered them. I could have used I fell and added that the exclamation mark means he was yelling or screaming and stuff like that, but I did not. So I just tried to use these two, and then I added an example or some of the background knowledge in order to make my paragraph a little bit stronger. Obviously answering in paragraph form. And when Ted fell, how do you think he felt? So I'm answering this question in paragraph form. And even though sometimes it's not going to ask you to answer in paragraph form, it is always a good skill to go back and kind of answer with at least a main idea, a detail from the text, and then concluding it.